Several years ago, I was at a Toys R Us store, kind of like this one here in Cedar Rapids that's closed now. I was shopping with my grandson when I heard somebody from across the store yell out, "Hey, Doc!" Of course, I didn't pay any attention because I'm not a doctor. But when he walked up to me and he put his hand on my shoulder and said, "Doc, didn't you hear me calling for you?" I turned to him, and the look of shock, surprise, and embarrassment on his face was undeniable. Has that ever happened to you? My guess is it probably has, happens all the time. And when it does, it serves as a reminder that sometimes it's good to stop and look a little closer. So I want you to join us for worship on Sunday as we continue in our sermon series on the second coming of Christ and end times prophecy. Because the thing that we're going to be focusing on in particular on Sunday is the fact that as those days approach, there's going to be people who come onto the scene that kind of remind us of Jesus. Some of those same people, as a matter of fact, are going to claim to be the Christ or the Messiah come in the flesh. But don't be fooled. The Bible tells us that those folks are actually antichrist. When you look real close, you'll be able to tell that there is a significant difference between them and Jesus. So, I invite you to join us for worship on Sunday at 9:30, Prairie Bible Church, and we'll explore this topic in a little more depth then. So there are a couple of things I want you to be praying for this week, Prairie Bible. The first one is this. Every week, I'm going to be asking you to focus your prayers on one of our missionaries that we support on a regular basis as a church. So this week, I want you to be praying for Simon Benjamin and the Jalingo Orphanage. I want you to pray for him, for God's protection upon him and his family, but I also want you to be praying that God would provide the resources that they need to fulfill the mission and the vision that God has called them to. The second thing I want you to be praying for, I want you to be praying for the food banks all around the world, but specifically here in the corridor. There are people who, because of this pandemic, because they're unemployed, who just need the basics of life, like food. And we need to be praying for those food banks, the volunteers there, and for all the people that need them. And by the way, we still have the opportunity to be involved practically in that ministry as well. If you go to the website, you'll be able to find that there's still some opportunities to drop off some food. And if you have some cash that you'd like to give or a check that you'd like to give for these things, just drop them off, send them to Randy Rummery, and we'll get them to those food banks. Finally, the thing that I want you to be praying for with fervency, I want you to pray for all these things with fervency, but specifically I want you to be praying for revival. I want you to pray that God would take the circumstance of this pandemic and use it to turn people to repentance, to turn people back to God, and pray that God would use us as a church to help bring revival to our land and to the world.